I am happy to say that we are mere months away from me being proven right. As Odd Taxi came to conclusion in 2021, I was absolutely thrilled by this series and I loved it to death. And now we know that on April 1st, we're actually going to get a sequel movie of Odd Taxi called Odd Taxi in the Woods. Now, to start things off with this video, this is a full-on spoiler discussion about my thoughts of this announcement. So if you have not watched Odd Taxi, please go watch it and then come back and watch this video because I have a lot to talk about here and I'm really thrilled about this movie. So now that we got the spoiler out of the way, I can talk freely here. But yes, I'm super excited to hear about this movie coming up. And when I did my news bit on this whole situation, I was really kind of fighting myself from saying too much. But yes, I'm super excited for it because I think this is going to be that conclusion that we were all wanting. Despite the fact that we loved that series so much, there was so many people that were unfortunately a little bit disappointed by where it kind of left off. Now, granted, it is kind of one of those, the Aliens movie kind of thing where the egg opens up at the very end. You realize, this story isn't ended. But at the same time, most people kind of figured that was it. They're not going to do anything else. But thankfully, again, we now know that they're going to do something else. The description that they have for this movie is that it's going to be a reconstruction of the events of the series plus some answers. And I think that's where we're really getting here. This is where my theories are going. Based on this small key art they have for it, they show where Odokawa is sitting at this desk, and it seems like it's probably an interrogation room possibly. And that's where I think where this movie's going to go. I think how you reconstruct this entire series is to have Odokawa basically recant everything that happened throughout the series. And I think that's what they're doing. My whole theory that was with the last episode of Odd Taxi was that Odokawa knew who got in his taxi. I had the prediction that he knew that Sakura was getting in his taxi. Now, the big question mark was going to come, how do we get that conclusion? And that's where we get that whole kind of, let's recount the situation. And that's where I think it's going. I think the other aspect that we have that I think a lot of people are frustrated, myself included, I really don't like when there's stuff on the side that tell you the story that you have to actively seek out. And of course, they had this whole radio drama thing that they were doing on the side of the series that was talking about this pin. I don't know how involved the pin will be with this adaptation, this movie, but there is probably going to be some connecting of the dots with that pin in order to tell Sakura's story. So that's where I get my theories on how this movie is going to play out. It's probably going to have Odokawa recounting the events of everything he went through, thus replaying the series to give us, mostly people that have not watched the series to know what happened, plus us to get reacquainted with what happened. And you might have sprinklings of what happened with that pin and those stories that radio drama was telling on the side, possibly them finding some notes that Satoshi had made. He was the one that was doing the radio drama on the side. And then piecing all those together to get to that ultimate conclusion. Because again, my whole theory was that after getting out of the hospital, Odokawa probably went to the police. They had this conversation. He talked about he had this footage, and that was obviously his cam that was inside of his cab. But he was saying that he needed to get this footage to the police in that hospital room. And the thing that I wasn't really figuring at the time was like, well, okay, Odokawa knew who was in the cab with him. He obviously said that it wasn't Sakura because he said it wasn't that girl that was in before the Calico. So he's already saying in that night, that person that he delivered to the studio wasn't Shiho, and it wasn't Yuki or Sakura. He was pointing out it was Rui. But there was still a side of me that believed that he possibly delivered both of them. Because again, he's saying that there was he has something there. We already knew that Rui was going to be framed for it, but it was going out of its way to say that somebody he brought there that wasn't a part of the whole picture. So I thought, what was the chances that he possibly brought both Sakura and Rui there, thus giving that one extra thing that they didn't have before? Or possibly timestamping it, realizing that Rui's time that she got there wouldn't match up from possibly the time of death. But again, that's how I feel like that movie's going to play out, is they're going to sit there and recount everything that happened. They're possibly going to tie in all these little steps that Sakura made on the side that was in the radio drama, and then ultimately get to that conclusion where Odokawa looks at the footage, gets the actual human form of Sakura into his mind, and then they're going to create that sting. They're going to get him out there to create that sting to stop her. I just hope of course, I hope it's not going to be as simple as that, because then that will be kind of okay, well, that was exactly what I thought. I hope it'll be a lot more complicated than that. that she'll be more difficult to track down than just that. But I think, like I said before, it's not that I didn't like how Odd Taxi ended. It was just a feeling of almost like justice wasn't really necessarily served. It still gave you that feeling of like, especially if you listen to the radio dramas and you get the fact that Sakura hadn't just ended with just Yuki. She went after Tako. She went after Satoshi, so we don't even know if Tako or Satoshi are even alive at this point. She's obviously going down the line of everybody that was involved or have any kind of connection and taking people out. So there is, despite loving Odd Taxi, there's still that you still kind of want justice to be served. Obviously, Yuki being killed wasn't cool. I mean, it's kind of a sad thing. Additionally, I'm wondering how much of the confusion with who Odokawa dropped off is centered around how similar Yuki and Sakura look. Obviously, the whole shtick with Odokawa is that he's seen people as animals, and thus was able to see differences between people despite somebody else looking at a photo of two people and not really realizing a difference. It was kind of shown with Goki showing this picture to Odokawa and him realizing, oh, I know exactly who's in that picture, whereas most people would just see a silhouette and just see that it's just a bunch of people in there. I don't know who's in that picture. But obviously this idol company was trying to get somebody that looked like Yuki because she was killed. And the only difference that we, as the viewers, see, especially when we see the actual, vantage point of Sakura, is that the big difference between the two of them at the time of the killing was that Yuki had long hair and Sakura had kind of pigtails going on. So I'm wondering if, even from Odokawa's standpoint, the two of them look similar, but only slightly different. And so that's the reason why there's a little bit of a confusion there. Despite him saying that it wasn't her, the person in the back seat on, I think it was episode 5, wasn't the one that he dropped off, he could have made a mistake because of how similar they are. They're going to be the one only example where he couldn't tell the difference between the two of them. Despite everybody else being so uniquely looking based on animals, those are the two that were very similar. But yeah, I am super excited for this movie. I hope it's not a letdown. I hope it's not too much recounting of the events of the entire series. I'm sure it will be, but I hope that they kind of condense it a little bit. Obviously, my only issue that I had with the series as a whole was the Homo sapiens. They were just, their joke routine was not funny, and it was technically the point. I just felt like they dragged them out too much. I love what they did with the characters, but at the same time, their little comedy routines was like, oh, please, just move on. But I'm super excited for it. I'm so looking forward to seeing what they do with it. And again, I hope a lot of focus is around Sakura and really giving us a conclusion to that story and hopefully getting justice served. Again, I don't think Odokawa's dead. Everybody was screaming at me saying, no, the ending is Odokawa dies. I'm like, no, he's there for a reason. He's doing a sting up. This is a guy that's known for doing this kind of stuff. He often puts himself in danger because that's him. That's his character. And I think this is going to be the time where he's out there because the police, specifically the younger Daimon, is probably working with him in order to get this girl down, in order to finally put an end to who killed Yuki. I'm also curious if Tanaka has some sort of connection with Sakura as well, because obviously he gave her the cell phone that she placed in Odokawa's car. Was he just somehow knew that she was going to get in the car and wanted to plant it, and so he asked her to do it, or what? But yeah, that's my speculation, my spoiler speculation for Odd Taxi. I'm so looking forward to it. I hope you guys join me here. I will be doing a review of it. I will definitely be making videos on it for sure. But that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know what you thought of it. What are you expecting? What's your predictions? What they're going to do? Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon. I'll throw a tips link in the description below. Definitely appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.